My name is Karen, and I have Asperger's, which is also called high-functioning autism. It's really a mild form of autism, and the way it affects me on a daily basis is basically I'm very sensitive to loud noises and lights. A lot of movement will overwhelm me, so big crowds are very overwhelming to me. A lot of social interaction, like compared to normal people, I can't be in those situations for too long because they become overwhelming, and I just get emotionally kind of like stopped up. The main challenges with Asperger's have to do with interacting with people. And basically, as a kid, before I was diagnosed, I just thought I was incredibly shy. But it turns out I was not picking up on what they call social cues that normal people pick up on because their brains are different. So in terms of interacting with other kids, I just didn't quite understand what they were saying, or if there were a lot of interactions going on at once, I probably was overwhelmed. So now that I know I have Asperger's, I know that I'm different from neurotypical people in that sense. So neurotypicals might really enjoy and thrive off of a lot of interactions with people, whereas I might get confused and overwhelmed more easily. On the other hand, I really enjoy one-on-one interactions, and it's much easier for me to focus if it's just a one-on-one interaction. Life can be very lonely because I think subconsciously people with Asperger's tend to basically fail at or not do well and feel bad about themselves when they interact with other people. And looking back on my life, I realized I kind of closed more and more in on myself because I wasn't having a lot of social success. And even though I was getting great grades in school and I was like the smartest girl in class, but I was the nerdy, quiet type. And so I had problems keeping friends, making friends. And for me, I like things to be explicit and stated. Like, for example, I'm your friend, I like you. And people don't say that. Maybe you say that in kindergarten, but adults don't really say that. And if that's not said, I might not know, and I might have a lot of anxiety over, are we friends? Does that person like me? More so than I think neurotypicals, because neurotypicals are picking up on things like, oh, well, she's calling me, and she smiles when she sees me. I might not see that. I might not understand that she's calling me because she likes me. I just might not get it. And so I think people with Asperger's tend to feel, at least I do, tend to feel so insecure about the whole friendship thing and the relationship thing, and whose move is it now? Am I supposed to call you, or do I wait till you call? And what does it mean when you said, let's go to lunch? Does that really mean you want to go to lunch, or are you just saying that to be polite? That's another thing. Some people, they say things to be polite, and it's very hard for people with Asperger's to get a feel for, oh, they're just saying that to be polite, or yeah, they said they want to go to lunch, so let's go. And then later you find out, wait, they really didn't mean that, and then you feel really hurt. I had a therapist that had me work on trying to look at people's body language and what are they trying to tell me with their body language. And I believe that it's too much data coming in for me, that I can't, if they're talking to me, I'm listening to what they're saying. I it's hard for me to look at their whole body language at the same time as processing the words. So I think that I rely more on the words they say. That's why if someone says, let's go to lunch, I hear that, and maybe their body language is saying, oh, I really don't want to go to lunch with you. I am just saying that to be polite, but I miss that whole message. So I've tried to work on getting better at reading body language, but I just think that for me, especially if I'm nervous, it's very hard for me to interpret body language. I rely more on the words and believe pretty much what people say as the truth. Figures of speech are, again, processed quite literally and for the most part for people with Asperger's. I think that over time I figured out when people say, oh, that's a whole new can of worms, they don't really mean there's a can of worms and there's, in my mind I see that and I think, ew, why are they talking about worms? But I think over time I learned, naturally that that's just a figure of speech. But, for example, a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine, we were sitting at a table. She said, I'm going to put something on the table. And I was waiting for her to put something on the table. But she meant, I'm going to propose something. People with Asperger's do tend to be highly sensitive, and in a lot of ways. I think that we generally have a lot of empathy for other people, and it's a myth out there that people with Asperger's don't have empathy. I think that if somebody tells me a story about somebody that's hurting, I have so much empathy, I can feel it in my body, or I might relate so much, but I might be so saddened that I'm quiet. So it seems like, wow, I'm being cold or aloof. But really inside I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for that person. And I know for me, I have a delay. I don't have a delay that much anymore, but when I'm very emotional, I have a delay, a speech delay, where it's so hard for me to talk. So anyway, I think that people with Asperger's have a lot of empathy for other people, which is a gift because we have a lot of compassion for other people. Also, being very sensitive to sounds, I think people with Asperger's are incredible musicians, or can be, and the way we process sounds, we just hear things maybe that other people don't hear, and we can express ourselves through music rather than words in a unique way. For a parent with a child with Asperger's, I would say be clear about what's happening now and what's going to happen in the future. For example, like, we're going to the grocery store now, we're getting groceries, and oh, you're helping me with, get the groceries, and then your kid might ask a lot of questions like, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? Or how are you going to pay the cashier or something? I think that there's a lot of anxiety about what's going to happen and what's going on, and I would say to just interpret that as the kid asking for explanations and for comfort. And I know it can be annoying, but I think the more comforted the child is, the more they're going to trust the parent, and to feel that the parent does know what's going on. I had a lot of anxiety about going into first grade, because I heard, this was back when you didn't learn to read until you were in first grade. It wasn't like now where you're 3 and you have to read or something. But I learned that we were going to learn how to read. And I had a lot of anxiety, my mom told me, over that because I was like, I don't know how to read, I don't know how to read. And she said, they're going to teach you. But I didn't really, part of it was, I think, my parents' fault, but they also didn't know I was autistic. But I had so much anxiety thinking that I had to already know something before it was taught to me. And so I think the thing that was missing was the idea that people are going to help me, people are going to be connecting with me, people are going to be assisting me, and that I don't have to know anything from the start. So I think the point there is the idea of people helping and assisting, because I think Asbies do feel isolated a lot and like they have to do everything on their own. And I know that's one of the traits that they're unaware when they need help, because sometimes they feel like they're in their own little world and nobody's there. Nobody's going to help them. Nobody understands them. And that's not true, but I think it's important to reach into autistic people's worlds and make it very clear that you're in their world and that they're not alone. Because if you really feel that isolated, it's really a horrible feeling. Autistic people tend to have different ideas about personal space. You know, sometimes we stand too close to people. I know for myself that if I like somebody, I want to hug them. And, you know, according to social protocol, it might be too soon to hug somebody that you know, feel warm about, but you kind of don't know that person in that way. So sometimes people with Asperger's maybe need a little more training on, you know, who you're going to hug, who you're going to stand close to, who you're going to stand far apart from. And I know that I tend to be more physically affectionate than maybe normal people, and sometimes sometimes that's misinterpreted. I think of it as I'm just trying to express my my warmth for somebody, but it might not be appropriate at certain times. And another thing about personal spaces, if I'm standing near somebody and they're talking to me and I'm nervous, I might just look down at the floor and talk the whole time at the floor, and because I'm too nervous to look at them in the eyes. Yeah, my dad definitely, he has Asperger's. He has a hard time with eye contact. I think it's because we get overwhelmed by the personal connection. So for me, like I said, I think for me, physical touch is a way of connecting, but looking someone in the eyes is almost too much. So sometimes Asbies do look to the side or look away, even though they feel like they're really connecting with that person, but it seems like they're talking over here, you know, but it's weird because they probably do really feel connected to you, but they just can't look at you, at least for too long, because it's like, oh my gosh, there's a person there. And it's like, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it's kind of like there's so much information coming in and I've got to concentrate on what I need to say, you know, and it's too much, like, ah. Okay, another thing that really helped me a lot as a child was learning to play piano, because I wasn't that good at expressing myself verbally, and I had so much emotion in me, and I didn't know where to put it. So once I started learning how to play piano, I realized that there was a whole other way of communicating through music, and I think that's really important for kids to be at least exposed to expressing themselves through sounds, like any kind of musical instrument, because if they feel like they can't verbalize, they can't explain it, they can express so much through music. That's really important.